Hi there, Michelle. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you. So let's start this off. Guys, everyone, welcome to another session of interviews with entrepreneurs. I'm actually really excited about today's session because, the whole purpose of all of these interviews was to help people, feel that, hell yeah, you can do it yourself. And I think, when we're talking about imposter syndrome and stuff like that, I think it plays such an intricate part to that as well. So today I'm joined by Michele Molitor. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Molitor, yeah, close enough.
Close enough,
Everybody
right?
gets their own little twist on it. So
Fantastic. I mean, she's the founder and CEO of Nectar Consulting, and she's got quite a nice story in terms of her journey of how from coming from tech all the way through to becoming a coach, etc. And we're going to chat to her a bit more about her journey as an entrepreneur, and then we're really going to get into chatting about imposter syndrome as well, and how she actually helps other people overcome that, which I think is quite a prevalent thing in today's entrepreneurial world. So Michele, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dennis. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you
I've
today.
really been looking forward to this one. So Michele, first of all, let's start off. What is Nectar Consulting? Let's lay the foundation there. What is that?
So, Nectar Consulting is a company I founded 20 years ago. My anniversary is coming up next month. And I am a professional coach, consultant, and hypnotherapist. So, I help folks get at the root causes of those limiting beliefs that are holding them back, that keep them spinning in circles and prevent them from being the best entrepreneur, the best leader, the best human being that they can be, so they can get out of their own way and get on with doing the good work they're here to do in the world.
So tell me, let's take a step back, right? Because this wasn't always what you did. I mean, you actually come from tech, if I recall correctly. So take us through that journey from there through to where you are now. Give us a bit of a
Sure. So in
background.
my previous life, I was a creative director and graphic designer in web development in the early .com days.
So when websites had just come out, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm dating myself, but I was working in web development in 1997, so a while ago, a hot minute ago. And it's that work is what brought me here to the San Francisco Bay Area at the height of the boom. It was very exciting. I thought I had $1 million ticket for this hot.com I came to work for. And within less than a year, I essentially got bullied out of my job by two guys that I had hired for my team. Right. I had a whole team of designers and information architects that I was managing. And they made it very clear they didn't like working for a woman, and that they thought they were better than me, and that they knew more than me, and that who was I to be in the position that I was in. This, of course, fueled a huge case of imposter syndrome in me. They got into my head and really started to notch away at my own confidence. And ultimately, it led to me getting fired. And it was devastating, Dennis. It was absolutely devastating to my confidence, to my sense of self-worth, my sense of self-esteem. Who am I? What am I doing? Oh my gosh, what do I do now? Right. Sure. It was very much a big deer in the headlights. Right.
I always say, as an entrepreneur, if you haven't been fired at least once from a real job, then you're not a real entrepreneur.
Well, in hindsight, it was the universe's way of going, no, not that. Look over here.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
It was so true.
Totally. And so I discovered coaching at that time. My uncle
was like in the beginning years of coaching.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I mean, we're talking 2000s here, right? So, that's
2000
like,
on the nose.
Very, very new thing.
Yeah. And so my uncle, who was a veteran of Silicon Valley, was like, there's this thing called career coaches now. You should find one. I was like, what? Okay. So through the magic of the internet, I found my very first coach. And in working with her, it was so enlightening. Like, questions she asked me, no one had ever asked me before, like, what are your core values? I was like, Oh, that's great. That's a great question. I never thought about that before. And the process of doing that internal examination, I realized that, oh, this was actually the work that I was meant to be doing. I had studied psychology in school and literally freaked out in the last minute and changed my major in the ninth inning. Literally.
Wow.
My parents were not amused.
I could very well imagine.
They were like, what? No.
What
Anyway,
did you change it to? Just by the way, what did you change it to?
To advertising. Ironic. I'm like, there's psychology in advertising. I can use that there, right? Yeah, exactly.
That. That's good.
It was the interesting machinations of a college senior, right? Yeah, so I discovered coaching, and it was like all the cells in my body came into alignment, and my spirit was like, yes, this is what you're supposed to do. So I went on to get trained and certified, and hung out my shingle in 2001, in October 2001. So I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I've been constantly seeking, how do I become the best version of me? How do I get the junk out of my own trunk so I can show up bigger, brighter, more clear, and more grounded for the people that I am serving? And along that path, I've discovered many different modalities, all of which are very valuable. But the one that I found to be ultra transformative for me is a process called rapid transformational therapy, or RTT. And in doing this work for myself,
so explain the RTT for me.
Sure. So rapid transformational therapy is an interesting combination of modalities. It combines cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, yes, with neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, with hypnotherapy, right? So all rolled up into one session. So essentially, in doing this work now, I'm able to have a direct conversation with your subconscious mind, which is 90% of your brain power. Yes. That enables me to get at the root causes, the originating events of where you made decisions about yourself, like, I'm not enough. Who am I? I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. I'm not lovable, et cetera, that literally have been sitting in your subconscious thinking since whenever you dropped that thought in 10, 20, 30, 40, however many years ago it was, right? Yes. Oftentimes those beliefs get adopted when we're very small, when we're children, because as children, we just take in information. We're sponges. Our brains are sponges. So they just take in the information and the ideas and the beliefs from the people around them, from the environment that they're living in, that they're growing up in. So, we learn what we live. Yes, and so yes, if you've grown up in an environment where, you were in, not even necessarily an abusive environment, but where you were hearing negative things, or you're surrounded by people that didn't have a sense of their own self-worth, right? You adopt those beliefs because it's just the water you're swimming in. You don't know any different. Yeah. And that becomes the modeling for how you move through the world.
And it's not like you're actually actively trying to absorb that. It's just happening in the background.
Right, exactly. It's just data in, right? It's just data coming in because your brain is developing. So it's taking in as much information as it can. So it's building all these new neural pathways, right? As your brain grows through, all the way through to young adulthood. Your brain's really not fully developed till 25 years of age. So there's a lot of stuff happening in there, right? And if you've had sadly abusive parents or narcissistic parent, or people in your life who were talking negatively to you in one way, shape, or another, you often tend to take on beliefs like, oh, well, maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe I'm not lovable. If I just try harder, right? So, when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's that need to get it right, to be perfect, to have it all together, because otherwise underneath all that, we feel like we're not enough, we're a fraud. We don't have all the answers. And that often stems from those childhood beliefs that we've developed, right? So the work that I do combines coaching with RTT, rapid transformational therapy, inside of a 90-day program. And essentially what I'm able to help people do over those 90 days is get at those big boulders, those big underlying beliefs that we're carrying around. Sometimes we don't even realize we're carrying around these negative beliefs because they're so deeply buried in our subconscious. To identify them, to neutralize the emotional charge around them, and then replace them with new empowering beliefs. I am enough. I am worthy. I can create all the success that I choose when I put my mind to it, right? So your brain loves repetition, Dennis. That's how we learn, right? So you know 100%. How you can remember the words to a song from 30 years ago, like it just pops into your head, right? Because it gets dropped into your long-term memory because you sang it in the car over and over and over again. So one of the tools that I use is I create a customized transformation recording for my clients. And this is a guided hypnosis recording based on their unique situation and their perspective. And I'm instilling new empowering beliefs and thoughts, and a particular cadence and tone of voice that is empowering them.
You sound like you've got that voice going there already.
You're getting so pleasantly relaxed.
I kind of recording my meditation stuff that I listen to. Same voice.
Yes. Exactly. So they listen to this recording that I make for them, that I mix in binaural beat music every night as they drift off to sleep, because your brain's always listening, right? It doesn't turn off when you sleep. So your subconscious is absorbing all of these new beliefs, these new behaviors, these new habits and thoughts. And so over 30 to 90 days, you're literally building new neural pathways in your brain that then has you start to show up more confidently, more joyfully, believing in yourself more, having you taking actions that previously maybe you were afraid to take, you were hiding out from. So it's really powerful, and it's really super joyful for me to witness people as they transform before my eyes.
I think it's such a big thing that so many entrepreneurs struggle with, right? Is imposter syndrome. I mean, I know I've struggled with it a lot, and people look at me and they think, oh, Dennis, but you've had a couple of, great companies. You've done 7-8-figure businesses. I mean, what have you got? Why do you feel imposter syndrome? I'm like, I still feel it when I do something else. I've sometimes got this feeling like, will someone actually watch this? Will anyone join the webinar? Luckily, we got a few people on the webinar. Will anyone join the webinar? Will somebody be interested in this post that I put out there? Will someone be interested in watching a live, or whatever the case is? Will they be interested in my product or service? And I mean, that's all imposter syndrome, right? I mean, it's like from some kind of limiting belief at some stage in my life that it's like, but then once I've gone on and meditated and stuff like that, then suddenly I'm feeling a lot better. After a few days of meditation and kind of really focusing on it, I find that, that really works quite a bit. So.
Yeah. It's really about getting grounded back into yourself, into who you know yourself to be. But oftentimes I've found with a lot of folks, especially entrepreneurs, while they've been successful in a lot of ways, they've been courageous and brave in a lot of ways, there's still that underlying belief of who am I? And why would anyone listen to what's different about what I have to say from the other person? There are these titans in the business who were saying the same things that I want to say. Why would anyone want to listen to me? I had this conversation just yesterday with someone, with a new client, and it's simply this, because your experience is unique to you, your perspectives, your experience, all the data that you've taken in through your lifetime creates its own magical and unique blend that no one else has to offer. no one on the planet, right? It's impossible. Even if you have a twin, it's impossible for them to have the same experience that you do. So you bring those unique experiences to what you have to offer and your wisdom to share through your work.
I love that. I mean, I really love that. And I think so many people can benefit from, from doing something like that and, really, delving into, what the root cause is, because I think a lot of us tend to just do like a surface patch, like putting a Band-Aid on, I know I'm guilty of that. I'll put my hand up. I know I'm being guilty of that.
And we all do.
Yeah. Rather than going back and saying, okay, well, what's causing that thought? What's causing, me to say, maybe I'm not good enough, or doubting myself at all? Because the weird thing is once I get out there and I go and do it, right? It always works. I mean, I've never regretted afterwards, kind of thing. It's like it's the universe just pulling it together and saying, well, see, dumbass, I told you so.
Yeah, you just listen to me. You just listen to me. Yeah.
Yes. We got a chat here, so I'm just going to read it out here. Loving the description of the RTT, the belief that I'm not good enough or worthless, etc. Would you call that a program? Metaphorically, and the new subconscious rewiring, kind of a system upgrade. The program will always exist and run, but the upgrade can make you conscious of where it comes from and how it is running to show you the moment. Would this be true to say that the program never goes away? It's simply being conscious of it. That's actually a really good question. In terms of, I mean, basically what we're asking here is, from what my understanding is, are you always conscious of that programming that you've had before? In terms of if you go and do that rewiring now, right?
Well, what I found, Dennis, actually is it disappears itself, literally. I've had clients who come to me with, I want to grow my business. I keep hitting the ceiling and I don't know what to do about it. And I keep sabotaging and then I get this horrible bout of IBS, right? Like, well, let's look at that and remove it. And this woman literally came back to me when we were done with our work. And she's like, what was it that we worked on? Like, it literally had disappeared out of her consciousness. This is why I have my clients, they have an online private journal space so they can record what they're sensing, what they're shifting as they go through it.
Back. It's not like it's still stored there and you can actually just...
It's like writing over an old tape.
I love that.
Right?
That's good news.
Right? You're just replacing it, because once you eliminate the emotional charge, your amygdala, which is your fight, flight, or freeze mechanism in your brain, which is the one that's, holding guard, like, oh, remember you said it wasn't safe to do that, so don't ever do that again. I like to call her Amy. Amy's your amygdala. She just wants to keep safe and alive and on the planet, right? Yeah. But if Amy thinks that thing that you're doing is not safe, she won't let you do it. Consciously or unconsciously, she's going to put some kind of barrier in your way. Your body might react. You might get a headache. You might get a body ache. You might, all sorts of things that are going to prevent you from actually taking those steps forward. It might be a mindset that you have. So when you neutralize that old belief and you rewrite it and you retrain Amy, you retrain your amygdala to take a stand for this new belief, then the old one just disappears. And I've done this with hundreds and hundreds of people all around the planet, and I see this happening time and time again.
Yeah, that explains a lot, because I often chat to people and I say, but remember when you did this or whatever, or you felt like this, etc. I'm like, what? Are you smoking weed? I can't remember that. It's just because I've gone and reprogrammed, my mind in that. But that also explains, because I thought I was starting to suffer from Alzheimer's.
No. I mean, literally. So neuroplasticity, the science of neuroplasticity tells us that your brain is a use it or lose it kind of organism, right? So the more you learn, the more pathways you build, and the pathways that you aren't paying attention to. So let me put it this way. When you use repetition, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough, you're building new neural pathways in your brain. And the more you repeat it, the stronger those pathways become. And then the old pathways of, oh, I'm not enough, who am I? The less that you think those thoughts, the weaker those connections become until they literally dissipate. Like they unhook themselves, if you will.
Well, that is definitely interesting. Now, I mean, in the case of when, would you say that this also relates to the kind of people that you attract into your business or into your life? For instance, if you're attracting people that don't want to spend money with you as an entrepreneur, or dishonesty, or whatever the case is that also a part of the rewiring? If you rewired your subconscious, that you would actually you wouldn't attract that?
Yes, because so this is where my inner science geek likes to come out.
I love inner science geeks. Come on.
Yes. So I love studying neuroscience and physics and energy work and whatnot. And so if you boil us all down, we're just energy, right? Yes. We're just energy. We're all in different phases of energy and vibration, and our emotions vibrate at different frequencies, right? So negative emotions vibrate at a lower frequency, and positive emotions vibrate at a higher frequency, right? So when you start to retrain your brain to believe that you are enough, that you are lovable, that you are worthy, deserving of success, right? You're literally raising your vibration to higher and higher levels, right? So the law of attraction tells us like attracts like, right? So vibration attracts vibration. If the vibrational frequencies are too far apart, they cannot exist in the same space, literally. Negative, lower vibrations will take themselves away eventually because it gets too uncomfortable for them to be in the same space. So this goes for
So if I could just pause you there quickly. So basically, these people, a lot of people complain about as they're growing, as themselves, they lose a lot of friends, because that was actually one of the questions I was meant to ask you is, is that normal? And basically what you're saying is, well, you're now vibrating at a higher level. If your friends are still at this other level, what's going to happen is basically it's just, nature's going to take its course and it's just going to move away, because the universe is saying, well, you don't need that in your life. We need to take it to another level.
This principle was made abundantly clear to me when my now ex-husband walked out on our marriage. Right?
Oh, okay. You got to tell us about that
too. Right. And, I was feeling really horrible and really bad. And what did I do? And and then a very wise man, literally named Aha, shared this principle with me. And I was like, oh, that explains a lot, right? And so you can look at it as, who are you being that is attracting what's happening in your life, right? And if you don't like what you're attracting, then raise your vibration.
Yes.
Right? So you have to get more clear, more focused, more grounded, more self-aware to continually raise your vibration, so that then you can start attracting to you more of those higher vibrating people, opportunities, and circumstances. And the lower, more negative vibrations will literally fall away.
I love that. I absolutely love that explanation. So, I mean, you've now been doing, and now we're going to chat a bit about your business as well, but you've been doing this for, what's it, 20 odd years, right?
20 years, yeah.
And you're still a spring chicken. So
Thanks.
There you go. I threw that in there, right? So, I mean, 20 years, people look at you and they say, look at Michele, she's got the right mindset, lovely lady, so easy to talk to. She knows her stuff and that. But it hasn't always been an upward spiral for you. Exactly, right? So
it never is.
Would you mind sharing, a couple of setbacks or failures, or, something that's to show people that it's not always an upward spiral, but, it does dip down. I mean, this is just what life is, and how you actually dealt with this. So not just the story, but how you dealt with that to get back
Yeah,
That's the
sure.
most important part is, the
Right.
ability
How do you come back from it? Right.
Exactly.
Resiliency is key as an entrepreneur, right?
Exactly.
Tenacity, resiliency, and a stick-to-itness, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so, there's been a lot of challenges in my business, I think, that stemmed from my own fears, right? When I started my business, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So I'm like,
Oh, you're lucky.
I'll figure it out. My parents, my brother and sister, they all been in a very successful family business. So I'll just go do mine, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be a part of that. That felt way too confining. So, um, but but I stepped into the unknown and I literally started making stuff up. Like, okay, I'll figure this out, right? Had I asked for help in a different kind of way, I could have, should have been in a different place, right? A lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda-ing on myself back then.
We all do that.
We all do that. If I'd only, right? So, piece of advice number one for all y'all listening is ask for help and surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, wiser than you, who have taken those steps and succeeded, so you can learn from their mistakes and not fall into the pit holes that they have fallen into, right?
100%. 100%.
Because,
I mean, it's like climbing a mountain. Why would you find a new route if you could follow the hiking trail that someone else has done, right?
Exactly.
Makes no sense.
Exactly. Everybody needs a helping hand to get up. We don't do this thing called life by ourselves. We just don't.
I mean, you look at every successful entrepreneur out there, right? And it doesn't matter if we're talking, 8-figure, 9-figure, 6-figure, or even 4-figure entrepreneurs, or 5-figure entrepreneurs. It's irrelevant. You look at the ones that are growing really fast. What are they doing? They're asking for help. They're not scared to actually just ask and say, listen, I need help with this. Can you help me with this? I think that's a big differentiator between those that are successful and going to be successful versus those that aren't.
Right.
But anyway, sorry, I was interrupting you there.
No, that's all right. It's all right. I had a whole lot of shame around asking for help because of what had happened in my corporate career, right? There was a lot of shame around how that ended. And by the way, I forgot to mention, when I got fired from my fancy corporate job, I went and worked for another startup, right? Yeah. Which was great. Oh, we've got 100 million in private funding coming. Yes, awesome, right? It was the .com boom days. And then,
Foosball machines and all of that, right?
Right. And 6 months into my new job, they're like, oh, sorry, we've run out of money. And we're going to have to lay you off. And we're going to shortchange you about $50,000.
Oh, my word.
And then a month later, 9/11 happened. And so it was really a smack upside my consciousness. Like, okay, what's really important here? What's really important here? And so that's what really was the catalyst for me starting my business, because I was like, I don't want to work with mean people. I don't have the skin to be dealing with the level of corporate politics that I had become immersed in. And I couldn't stomach it. Right. So, piece of advice number two is do the thing that calls your heart forward. Do the thing that is so aligned with your purpose, your values, that really lights you up. Because when you do that, when you get into that alignment, then success starts to flow. It's when we get sidetracked by who we think we should be, right? I should be this kind of coach, or I should be that kind of consultant, because that is how my family can understand it. And if they can understand it, then they'll love me, then they'll accept me, and then I'll be okay.
Yes,
right?
We tend to do that, to say that, okay, but when this happens, then we will be happy. I've done that. I must be honest. I've been guilty of that too.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to unravel that one. I will not lie. It took me a long time to figure that out. And so the more you start to go off course from what's really true to your core, then the more wobbly it's going to feel, right? You might have some wins, right? You might win some big contracts. Oh, that feels great. Let's do more of that. But then ultimately you have to come back to yourself and go, is that really what's true for me?
Now,
And is that where my heart really wants me to go?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about that, right? It's like, okay, you got to align yourself and, find your purpose, find your what, or find your how. People word it differently, but no one says how. Everyone says you got to do it, but nobody, okay, tells you, okay, that's great. I know I need to do it. How? So I mean, obviously, I mean, you teach that in your 90-day program and stuff too, but can you give us kind of like just a little taste of that
Sure.
in terms of, what
absolutely.
can someone do just to kick it off? But before you give us that, there was a question from Russell. How permanent is your 90-day training? Will the stuff trigger, will the stuff that triggered everything before come back to haunt you? And knock you back into your old ways, basically.
Well, and that's a great question. And that's why the recording that I make for my clients is so important, because it's that repetition of listening to it every single day that is building those stronger pathways, right? So they get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, right? Till you get to the point where you're like, how was I showing up before? I don't remember.
So
right?
Because you would actually so carry integrated. On with those. Yeah, so you'd carry on with those recordings post the 90 days, obviously.
Totally. Yeah. True story. I had one client who came to me to work on his confidence, and he came back to me like 6 months later because he wanted a shot in the arm to work on another issue, right? And he's like, should I continue to listen to my confidence recording? I'm like, do a science experiment, right? Listen to it and then see what your body tells you, right? And so he listened to it for about a week, and then he came back to me and he's like, yep, I'm good. My brain said I'm good with that, right? So some people listen to them, over time, and when they start to feel like their confidence is waning, they start listening to it again, and it's like getting that shot in the arm. So it gives them something to always fall back to as well. Because there's always going to be other triggers, right? That's why I work with clients now in a 90-day program, because there's typically, a couple of different things, these big boulders that are all kind of integrated together that they're not necessarily clear on. Like they'll come to me, yeah, I want to improve my business. I want to improve my confidence, but it has an impact on, themselves personally, professionally, how they're showing up, how they're communicating.
Network, isn't it? Everything's linked. So the question, which was the second part of Russell's question, is so post the 90 days, is everything going to fall away? That was the first part, and revert back to the old ways, and does he need additional training after the 90 days? In other words, a lot of coaches will say, okay, well, you got to do 90 days, and then you've got another 90 days, and then you've got another 120-day courses, etc. And it's constant courses. And that is the 90-day enough to actually take you and say, yes, here it is, run with it?
Typically it is, and it's not to say that there's not some other element, some other hidden blockage that starts to bubble up to the surface, right? You often hear, oh, we're always peeling back the layers of the onion skin, right? Yeah. You release a layer, you release a layer, and you release a layer, and you release a layer, and then you might find another layer that's been deeply hidden for many, many years. You didn't even know was there. And that pops up, right? And that's like in your face. So that's often when clients will come back to me and go, hey, can I get help with this other thing that's got me triggered now?
Yeah, so absolutely. I can kind of relate to that, because I've also been through that, where I've gone through something, and, it's taken me, 90 days or whatever to actually, get it out of my system, etc. And then, you know, a couple of months down the line, I'm like, wait, there's something else, you know, and, you know, the next layer comes and the next layer comes, you know. Now, whether you're going to go to a coach for that or you do it yourself or whatever the case is, you know, is irrelevant. But I do think that the core part, that initial part, like even I needed help with that. And I'm talking, this was 15 years ago that I did that, you know, that was, I mean, that was life-changing experience for me. Definitely. It was definitely worthwhile. And I wouldn't mind doing that again either. So let's go back to the how. Now, we were chatting about, okay, you're going to give us some tips. How do I do this? You know, because
Sure.
I mean, everyone says, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. Great. Tell us how. Just a few tips.
Sure. Well, the thing that I have found to be fundamental, foundational for every single human that I've ever worked with is this very simple question. What are your core values, Dennis? What are the things that are like water and air that you have to have in your life to feel like you're alive, you're being of contribution, you're living a fulfilled life in some way, shape, or form, whatever that means for you. And so I have this values assessment that I share with my clients, right? And they go through and there's a whole list of all these different values and they check off the ones that, yeah, oh yeah, that's important. That's important. Creativity, family, you know, communication, success, whatever, right? And then I ask them to narrow that list down to their top 10, right? What are the top 10 values that you find you're living by every day? Right. And then we take it one step further and like, okay, so for each of those values on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, oh, I'm fully living that value, and 1 being, I'm not doing a very good job of it. Right. How well are you actually living that value in each day? Because those values, the living of your values is a way for people to see how alive they are. Right. Because if your values are all, you know, under a 5, then your light's dimmed, you're feeling muted, you're feeling out of sorts. And when you can start to shift the internal dialogues that are preventing you from fully living those values, then those numbers start to rise, your energy starts to expand, and you start to brighten. Right. So, and that plays a pivotal part in how you start to show up in the world to do what you're here to do.
So it's basically doing a checklist for each of those values. It's saying, these are the ones that things that I need to address in this specific value, and seeing how you could possibly address those, and taking one at a time and trying to address it. Because I think too many people are trying to focus on too many things at the same time. Maybe it makes more sense to focus on one at a time, you know, and kind of build up from that and understand that it's a process rather than, you know, well, I mean, I followed a simple methodology when I used to be a relationship coach. You can believe that. So, you know, so we draw the 8 values, you know, love, honesty, trust, commitment, compromise, loyalty, and communication, right? So the 8 things, like spokes of a wheel, husband, wife, draw it out. Where do you see yourself? Scale from 0 to 10. You know, bicycle wheels, that's where your relationship's going. How are you going to fix it? What do you need to do to fix those, each one of those? What does your partner need to do? And then that's where the compromise is coming. Do you guys, are you going to help her? Is he going to help her? You know, kind of thing. And you can kind of get a feel for that. And it's kind of the same concept that you're talking about, you know, in terms of the value. It's just identifying what your actual values are. Because I think people are quite cliche, I think, if that's the right word, you know, in terms of, oh, okay, no, it's always honesty, loyalty, you know, the usual 5 things, you know. It's like, yeah, okay, don't take the dictionary. What is it really for you? You know, I think for your process and what you're talking about, I think being brutally honest with yourself as to who you are is the only way this is going to work for you. If you're going to go and BS yourself.
Right. Because it's not about impressing me.
Exactly.
No, I'm like, and I've had clients do that. They're like, oh, these are all a 10. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here with me if they were all of a 10, because you'd be like, hey, life is beautiful, all is well. And it's not, right? And so it is a matter of being really honest with yourself. And then that, especially as an entrepreneur, that translates into what are the values? What are the core values of your business? What do you want your business to represent? What's the impact that you want your business to have as an extension of who you are? Right?
Yes.
Because if you are caught and hiding out in your own set of fears, that is going to find its way into your business some way, shape, or form. Right?
That's true.
So
that's true.
The more you can peel back your own layers of the onion skin, releasing the baggage that we all have in our trunk, right? The more you can release that, the more clear and the more elevated your own business is going to be, because it's coming from a more grounded place.
100%. So let's talk a bit about pivoting, right? I don't know if have you pivoted in your business at all in terms of change direction?
Totally.
Totally. We got so many. One of the questions, I know prior to us doing all of these interviews, I sent out an email to like 14,000 people on my database and said, guys, if you had to listen to an interview, what are the kind of questions you would want to know, right? And one of them is fear of pivoting, So it was around fear of having to change direction. Because right now I know that things aren't really working, but it is kind of working. It's not where I want to be. But if I change direction,
it's uncomfortable in my comfort zone.
But if I change direction, it could either go that way or it could go completely that way. How do you?
Yeah, no, that's a very, very real thing, for sure. And so first and foremost, it's about trusting your gut. Right.
Your heart and your mind agree, right?
Yes. Trusting your intuition about what's actually needed here. And it can be scary. I totally get that. It is that leap into the unknown. But the clues when it's time to pivot is when you start getting really tight and crunchy inside your comfort zone, because it's really not comfortable anymore in there. Your spirit is, calling you forth to stretch and grow into a new way, shape, or form. And if you don't, then it's going to get more uncomfortable, right? Yeah. And if you continue to not listen to your heart, if you continue to not listen to your body, right, the universe will be kind enough to come in and like smack you upside the head in one way, shape, or another and go, no, look over here, right? I mean, that's what I think happened to me in my corporate career. It was like, I was having anxiety attacks. I was working 80 hours a week. I was unhappy, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't have any idea how to pivot or what that would even look like, right? And so for me, it was like, oh, here, let's just shove you off the .com bus and you'll find your way, right? So my goal and my work is so that people don't have to go through those radical kinds of shifts, but it can be a little more gentle, a little more delicate. But ultimately, it's starting to notice what's pulling you forward and what's causing you angst. Because if you're trying too hard, things aren't gonna work. If they're not in alignment, they'll work for a while until they don't work very well. Right. And that has been, some of my case, going through my career is like, oh, I'm a career coach. Oh, I'm a leadership coach. Right. Every time I would get a new training, the essence of my coaching would shift. It would grow and expand. Right. Because I was learning new things and taking in new tools. There was a bit of grasping at straws. Well, is it this? No. Is it this? No. Is it this? No.
You do that, yeah.
Right. And I think we all go through that until we find that thing that really, really is like, boom, there's just that knowing, right? I call them downloads. I get these downloads to the top of my head, right? Through my intuition of, yes, this is what it is. And so when I had that experience when I discovered coaching, it was just like that. I just knew in an instant that this was it. And when I discovered RTT, I had that same experience. Yes, this is it. And so it was combining those two passions of mine together that has created my rapid rewiring program that is my heart and my soul that I love doing every day. And that's where that alignment comes from. And then things start to just flow.
I love that. I mean, I must say, I've also been through like a personal pivoting experience. I used to be a COO for a big tech, international tech business. And I literally, the one evening, was meditating. And it was shortly after I had actually done my, they'd gone through my whole process and that. And I was just sitting there and said, I can't do this anymore. There's something else I need to do. And I literally walked into work the next day and I resigned. But and I resigned. I didn't know what I was going to do, but you know what? Everything felt 100% right. There was like no doubt. There was no regret. There was nothing wrong, and literally 2-3 days later, the opportunity came, which, ended up being, my success, quite a successful business at the end of the day. But I think that's where, trusting their intuition, aligning, yourself. I think that's key. If you understand that and everything just feels 100% right, go ahead, do it. Trust yourself,
and
don't doubt yourself.
Yeah. And the really important key to that, Dennis, is knowing yourself, taking the time to tune in and listen, right? Because if you're not listening, if you're distracted by shiny bits, right? If you're distracted by things to numb out yourself, whether that's, TV, alcohol, sex, drugs, shopping, gambling, you name it, right? They're all distractions to keep us from tuning into ourselves, right? As are, big pharma, right? Antidepressants are very helpful. Don't get me wrong. They're very helpful for those who really need it. But over time, it just becomes a numbing agent and you're not listening to what your heart is actually telling you. So when you take time to okay, let me sit with the uncomfortableness of where I'm at to see what's on the other side of it. That's where the gold lies that will take you to that next expansive version of yourself.
I love that. So let's talk a bit about partnerships. Now, I don't know if this is relevant to you. Have you had a partner in any one of your businesses?
I did once upon a time.
So tell us, how did that work out? And what are the challenges you found personally with partnerships? We're kind of looking for some lessons learned here.
Yeah, that was a very difficult lesson to learn.
And probably expensive.
I created a different coaching business with a dear friend and colleague of mine. And we were very close friends and we loved coaching and we were super excited about it. And we were going along and doing what we were doing, right? And it was all flowing. And then literally one day we used to volunteer. It was a small group of coaches. We used to volunteer at San Quentin prison. For like 2.5 years, we would go in and we teach coaching skills to inmates. It was really powerful and amazing and heartfelt work. And I remember, I'll never forget, we were coming back from our evening there, and I was dropping my former business partner off at her house. And she just looked at me. She's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, what? Do what? She's like, I don't want to be in business with you anymore. I was like, what? I mean, it literally was out of left field. And I was like, back in my head, I was like, okay. And so with someone who had a huge abandonment wound.
Yeah, that you just got clapped again.
Right, smacked. And with no real understanding, no real communication. I was like, wait, you're a coach. You're supposed to be able to communicate it. Nope. And it was one of those big, huge question marks in my life for a long time, because I never understood what shifted to have her not only pull away, but dramatically pull away with great anger. Right. I literally ran into her literally physically ran into her at a networking event like a year later. And she was like, hi. I was like, wow. What's with the seething anger? I mean, it was really fascinating. And so the lesson learned from that is think twice before you go into business with a close friend.
Yes.
And make sure
my next
that
question, friends or family in business. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a family business, right? So in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, my parents have been business partners for their, most of their 63 years in marriage.
Oh.
So I have this amazing role model to work from. And I thought, oh, I can do that over here with this dear friend of mine. And you always want to make sure that you have the appropriate contracts in place of, how are things going to be divided? Who's in charge of what? What is that separation going to look like before you even start? So you can walk away and be able to sleep at night. Because I didn't sleep for a while after that.
I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, it's one of the big mistakes that I see with a lot of people that I mentor, is they come to me and say, well, what kind of partnership agreement have you got in place? Who's responsible for what? How's this going to look if you guys had to break up? No, we're never going to break up. We've been best friends since childhood. And I'm like, so you guys shook
Money
hands,
does weird things to people.
And your business is split 50-50 down the line, and you're taking it on faith and a handshake. It doesn't work like that in business. And, any real friend would gladly go and sign up, go sign an agreement with you. You guys both discuss an agreement, agree on how you're going to separate if it ever does happen. It's like prenuptials, isn't it? That's basically a marriage, if you think about it.
It really is. It really is. And, that experience was as painful as, the dissolving of my own marriage, right? Because I was very close to both of these people, right? They were and you're like, wow, okay. So yeah, it really is about making sure that you've talked about everything ahead of time. How are you going to handle the money? Who's going to be in charge of what? All of those pieces and parts that oftentimes people are fearful of talking about, right? And so if you're fearful of talking about it, it's definitely the thing that you need to talk about.
Oh, no, definitely. 100%, definitely. So let's talk a bit about customers, right? How do you find that you can connect with your customers, in a more meaningful way in this, tech-driven post-COVID era? I mean, prior to COVID, and that it was quite easy for us to have a seminar or have a group session or have individual sessions face-to-face, and, as coaches and as mentors, and that it's so much more personal being able to, be in that kind of environment. Whereas now we're very much more, online, So how do you bridge that gap in terms of connecting with your clients in a more meaningful way?
That's a great question, because, we all live in the land of the Brady Bunch squares now. Zoom, right? Hi, right? All of that. And I think part of it comes back, Dennis, to the energy that we talked about. Who are you being as a coach, as a consultant, as an entrepreneur, right? What's the energetic impact? I always call it your energetic signature. What's your energetic signature that you're leaving for people? And is that something that makes them feel good and wants them to open up? Or does it have them shrink back, right? Who you're being is that intangible energy, right? When you walk into a room, like a conference room, right?
Yes.
In our pre-COVID lives, you'd walk into a conference room and you can feel the energy in the room. Correct. People are either excited or they're like, ooh, they're trepidation, something bad is going to happen. You can sense that. And so again, you come back to the energetics of it all. Our energy expands like 2 to 3 feet out in all directions around us. Yes. Right? So that energy still has an impact, even though we're over Zoom. Right? I happen to be a very empathic person, so I can literally feel what's happening in my clients' bodies, like no matter where they are on the planet, right? And so whether you're that tuned in to your own senses or not. Not everybody is. That's okay. It's really leading with your heart, right? Because as your energy is open and expansive, it invites other people to open their energy, to lean in, to want to have that conversation and that connection. But if you're, sitting back with your arms crossed and your shields up, then people sense that consciously and unconsciously, and it has them sit back, right? We tend to mirror each other.
That's true.
So if you want someone to lean in and to be more open, then be open and lean in.
I love that.
It sounds really simple, but it's pretty effective.
So let's talk a bit about one of the categories of questions. And I know we're going a bit over time. I hope you've got some extra time.
No, that's fine.
But technology, how important is technology in your business?
How important is technology in my business?
Yes, that was actually one of the questions is, can we get away with being a coach, because this person wants to be a coach, studying so quite young, and how important is the technology aspect in terms of coaching?
Well, it depends on who your ideal client is. If you plan on working face-to-face with people, then it might not be as important. But as a coach, depending on what your niche is, right? You can work with people all over the world, right? I do my work over Zoom with people globally, right?
Same.
So, right. So the more, it's not that you have to be a tech guru by any means, but understanding how to use Zoom, how to interact with people on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, your social platform of choice, so that you can start to create those connections and find the people who resonate with you, right? I'm not the right coach for everybody. You're not the right coach for everybody.
Not at all.
And so that's why coaching has become so prolific, because there's, 7 billion people on the planet. There's plenty of people and plenty of coaches, and we attract the people who are right for us.
Correct. I can't say it better. I think just to add to that question that we were asked in that is where I think technology plays quite an important role at the end of the day is once you start growing and you start building your business, and that, when you're looking at email management, landing pages, integrations, stuff like that, to automate stuff. And technology is more an enabler for automation for me at the end of the day in my life, that, about 80% of my admin is automated purely because of technologies that have been implemented, whereas I've been manually sitting typing out each thing, So just to add to that, from my perspective, I think that is also where technology.
Totally. Automating as much of the pieces and parts as you can is really, really important. And, I will admit, I use Kartra on my back end, and it is, it's a learning curve. And, just for getting ready for this, right? I was like, oh, okay. So I've got my ebook that we're going to offer, right, for everybody. And then, oh, wait, I want to have an email sequence that goes with that. And then there's this other free gift. And then and so it's like a rabbit hole that you end up going down. I'm like,
that's a never ending rabbit hole.
It is. But then you get the other side and you're like, woo, I did it.
Yeah, man,
there we go. I got through that one. All right. Next.
I love that. So let's talk about personal impact. Obviously you've done this business yourself. You've grown it yourself. You've been through, obviously a divorce and that as well. And what kind of personal change did you have to make within yourself to be where you are today versus, when you started your company? If you had to pick that, like one or two.
If I could show you my driver's license from 20 years ago, you'd be like, who is that? Like, I'm like a whole different person. Literally, I had really short hair and I was it's hilarious. So I'm a very, very different person. And in the sense of, I have, as a learning junkie, as a seeker, as a healer, I have spent a lot of time and effort on healing my own wounds, eliminating those blocks and bugs in my own system right? Through a variety of different modalities. I've had coaches, I've had healers, I've had therapists, I've done Reiki, I've done all sorts of things, right? And each one has had its benefit along the way. And we move that little piece out of the way, move that little piece out of the way, move that little piece, all these different pieces and parts that have been the armor that I wore for so many years because I didn't feel safe, right? And so as you start to pull away those pieces, your light shines through, you become brighter, bolder, more confident, and things start to flow more effectively. So it's really about doing your own inner work that allows you to shine more and to feel more authentically yourself, right?
100%.
And be who you're meant to be.
I think a lot of people will watch this, and they'll say, but we're getting into really the woof waff, some people say,
the woo
the kind of stuff in that. But, trust me when I say, and I kind of, want to give some credibility to this. I've been through this, I've gone through this kind of changes, and they're many, many years ago. And I can honestly say, if I look at, people ask me what that one thing was that, I needed to change it myself. It was trying to understand who I was and clearing out all my blocks. That was it, because that was definitely the fork in the road for me, in terms of where I am today. Because if I hadn't taken that, I would still be working for a company, doing whatever, be very freaking unhappy, that's where I would be. So I think that is really, really important. Now, let's talk. You mentioned your family. Your parents have been married, 67 years. They've been in business their entire lives and that. How do you find, do you have children at all, Michele? I forgot to ask.
I have fur babies, but no human babies.
No human babies. Okay, well, fur babies count. So how do you find that work-life balance at the end of the day, with dealing with, your parents, yourself, your friends, everyone else? How do you find that work-life balance? Because, I watch you, and I obviously follow you on social media and stuff. And it always looks like you're at 200 miles an hour. So,
and this is the slower version of me this year. You should have seen me last year. Woo, I was hair on fire. Okay. Seriously, hair on fire. No, that's a really, really great question. And it's super, super important, right? I will admit, hi, my name's Michele. I'm a recovering workaholic, right? and really taking time for yourself. Last year, I had this kind of bizarre response to the pandemic. I'm like, oh, I'm going to create all these new programs. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And yeah, I did some Herculean levels of work last year, and I completely burnt myself out. I created a whole new program around emotional well-being, and I burnt myself out building it.
Oh, my word.
The irony is not lost on me. Yeah. I'm like, I just got to get it. I got to get it to market. I got it. Right. And then by December, I was like, oh, what's my name? I literally fried my brain.
Oh, my word. I've been in that.
Yeah. And it takes a while to recover. So I don't recommend it. Right. So really listening to your body and deciding is the world going to come to an end if I don't get this done today, or can it wait till tomorrow? I got the most profound piece of advice many, many, many years ago, the very beginning of my personal development journey. And it goes something like this. You'll get done today what you get done today, and what you don't get done today, you'll get done tomorrow. And if you don't get it done tomorrow, you might get it done the next day. And
I love that. That's brilliant.
It was such a light bulb moment.
Yeah, it is actually.
Like, oh, you're right. Like the world will not stop spinning if I don't check off this thing off my list. I have a book of lists just for my lists, right?
You've taken it to the next level.
I'm here to inspire and support you all in your growth, right? Get a book and make all this. But it really, because of my experience last year, I feel much more of an expert in the area of burnout and can speak to it and write to it a lot more effectively. And I've had cycles of this throughout my career. And what I found in my deep dive work this year was, I was still operating from that place of trying to win the approval of those I love. Right. And when I decided that I didn't need their approval anymore, that I actually am enough just as I am. And if they don't get it, they don't get it. And that's not on me, that's their stuff. And I don't say that with any malice. It's just what's so, right? But I didn't realize there was still this program operating very sneakily in the background of, are you sure? Are you sure this is good enough? Are you sure? Because I've done a boatload of work, Dennis, on my own I'm not enough conversation. And there were still even little remnants of it that was driving that behavior last year. So you go another layer deeper and another layer deeper. Oh, so
you kind of saying, are you saying, are you kind of saying that our sense of urgency almost comes from our need for approval from other people at the end of the day? Because that's actually quite true. You actually really look at it as like, why do I need to do this by tomorrow? Why do I need to? Because you want to impress someone, or you want to like, or whatever the case is.
I want to win, right? Whatever win means for you. Win and your family dynamic, win in your business dynamic, win with your competitors, whatever that might mean. There are times in a grander market, global competitive sense, yes. But at the end of the day, if it's going to be detrimental to your own health and well-being, then you have to stop and ask yourself, is it really worth it?
Yeah, 100%.
Do I really need to go that far, or can I pause and really take time to take care of myself instead?
That is so true. That is so true. So before we close off, just a few more questions that I do have here is, what's that one thing that you wish you knew before you started your business? That was one of the questions that was asked.
One of the things I wish
just one
that
thing
I knew.
that you wish you knew before you started the business.
Well, the first thing that pops in my head is, and not to be cliche, is that I am enough, and that I can figure it out.
I would actually give myself that word too. I think I'm going to steal that with you. I'm going to borrow it with you.
Yeah.
Share it with you.
Take it away.
Definitely. I think that is really, really accurate there. So, and let's see, Russell wrote something. Yeah. I'm in the midst of the 90-day RTT training with Michele and can testify that it's transformational. I am more confident, more aware of what's holding me back, taking more positive actions, more expansive with my thinking, and feeling like I have no limits. Oh, that's awesome, man. I love that. She goes deep into my self-conscious and naturally allows me to figure things out. Now I feel like I am enough. I highly recommend the 90-day RTT training. Thanks, Michele. Oh, well done, Michele. Thanks, Russell. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Russell.
That's an awesome reference there. I think I might actually sign up. So, what's that, before we say goodbye, what's that one lesson that you would want to leave with the people that's watching here and that's going to watch the replays of this video? What's that one thing that you'd love to leave with them to kind of say that the message I want to get out there is, hell yeah, you can do this too?
Yeah, well, it's actually quite simple, Dennis. When you rewire your thoughts, when you rewire your thoughts, you think new thoughts, then your life can take a whole new direction. It's literally about taking back control from your fears, right? If you can start to notice where Amy, your amygdala, is chittering in your ear. Well, who are you? And why do you think you can do that? And are you good enough? And well, somebody else has already done that. And right? You can just say, thank you for sharing, Amy, right?
Yeah.
And keep going. Right. I had this really fascinating aha moment. This was many, many years ago, Dennis. I was sitting and I was working on my computer. I was working on a presentation for a new client, I think. And I was getting literally like squirmy in my seat, and the top of my head was tingling. And I had this big urge to get up and go get a snack. Like, ooh, let's have some food. Right? let's go find a shiny object called a muffin, right? And eat the muffin because it will remove the discomfort that I'm feeling in this moment. But I caught myself. And I was like, oh, look at that. I'm squirming in my seat. I'm working on something difficult and the top of my head is tingling. Isn't that interesting? Oh, that's the edge of my comfort zone right there. That's what that is. Right. And because what I was creating was something bigger than I had ever done before. And I was like, ooh, right. Make little nervous butterflies. And I was like, oh, okay, now I see it. Now I recognize it. So next time I'm in that position and the top of my head starts to tingle, instead of going and, eating a muffin or whatever, a sandwich, then I'm just going to keep going because uncomfortable happens. Keep going. So as an entrepreneur, that's really, really important to start to recognize what's the edge of your own comfort zone. Where does your head start to tingle, right? Where do you have that urge to get up? Oh, let's do the laundry. Let's go clean the bathroom. Anything but sit in this uncomfortableness in this moment and just keep going, because on the other side of that, you've stretched, you've grown, you've expanded who you are in the world. And it's so immensely rewarding to look back and go, hey, look what I made. That's worth it all right there.
I love that. That's the best. I love that. Michele, listen here, thank you so much. Guys, for those of you that are watching live and those of you that are going to be watching this replay and that, I just want to say thank you to Michele. That we all say thanks to Michele. Listen, she has got a free ebook for you. You can actually find that if you log into our members area. And I'm actually just going to quickly share my screen so you can see where that is when you register this webinar, you would have gotten access to a private members area, which actually shows all the recordings. So you can actually go browse to Michele, you can read about her, and you can connect with her on all the different social media platforms. But if you scroll down to the bonuses section, you will see there is claim your free ebook to tackle imposter syndrome. So feeling anxious, doubting yourself, guys, go through here. You can click here, grab this offer. It will open up directly to Michele's page where you can go and download your free ebook. Okay. If you're interested in her 90-day program, in her 3-month program, please, guys, jump onto the membership site. If you jump there, it's 100% free, our members area. You jump in there, connect with Michele, her emails there, her Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, pretty much every social platform. I think she's one of our people that actually has every social platform, but you can go and connect with her, drop her a message. Don't be scared to go and ask her about that. So Michele, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm always happy to have a complimentary discovery session with someone who's curious, interested to see what this rapid rewiring is all about, and if it can be of service, right? So yeah, you can go to my website, michelemolitor.com, and book a discovery call. It's complimentary, it's confidential, and we can do it over the phone or over Zoom, and see what works. But I would love to be of service for those who are ready to do that deep dive and move some junk out of their trunk once and for all.
I absolutely love that. Michele, I'm definitely going to be bringing you back, because I only asked you half the questions I wanted to, and I really went over my time. But I really, really enjoyed this chat. It was so lovely having you here, Michele. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, Michele.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Take care and blessings.
Keep well. Cheers. Bye-bye.